and welcome to the Open Arrow Podcast. My name is Devang and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Simon Bushell on Championship Sunday. Wow, what a roller coaster of a ride, Simon. This has been a topsy-turvy weekend. Could have been better, could have been worse, but some interesting tennis at least.
I think that's very fair. I think we got two surprising champions, if you can call Carlos Alcaraz winning his second Grand Slam title a surprise. I think when everything is all said and done, we're going to look back at this tournament, I think, with a lot of revelry and a lot of excitement and a lot of fond memories, just simply because of the storylines that we got through these 2 weeks. There was also some terrible storylines at the same time, but in general, I think it was a pretty good championship weekend. Yeah,
there was a point there, maybe about halfway through the second set, where it felt like it was going to be quite the dud, and not to put my fandom hat on, but just in terms of the tennis itself and Carlos Alcaraz not necessarily looking super great after getting dummied 6-1 in the first set. It was looking like, oh, okay, well, the women's final was a bit of a letdown. I think we'll talk about Markéta Vondroušova's terrific couple of weeks here, but a lot of people wanted Ons Jabeur to win that match, and it didn't come to fruition, and it was just absolutely excruciating to watch near at the end. I don't know about you, Bush, but I thought the Sunday final, the men's final, was a bit of the tonic we needed, maybe.
I think so, yeah. I think the men's final, we will remember the winner, and I think we'll remember that final set, and I think we'll probably remember that half an hour game in the third set.
Yeah.
Third set? Fourth set? I think third set, right?
Third set, I think, yeah.
And realistically, we're about to see, I think, Carlos Alcaraz win a lot more Grand Slams. So the fact that he's been able to do this on his supposed weakest surface and to overcome and to slay the dragon the way that he has done, look out for LA Can for a very long time, Tev.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the men's final along with some other finals in part 2. But Simon, let's start on the WTA and talk about Markéta Vondroušová doing the damn thing. A surprise finalist, unseeded at Wimbledon, something that hasn't been done in a very long time, making a run all the way to the final and then beating Ons Jabeur in straight sets. That final felt like it went by way faster than it actually did, Simon. I think that's probably how Ons felt about it as well. She started so well, probably should have won the first 6 or so games of that match, but she wasn't able to, and the serve really deserted her. It was heartbreaking to watch. I think Ons, having been here last year, we felt she had learned a thing or two, and it seemed that way, especially in the semifinals, but that was tough to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to know how to tackle this WTA final, because you want to give full props to Markéta Vondroušová just on the basis that she becomes the first ever unseeded player to win Wimbledon. She completes the comeback from a very serious injury and all the things that it took to get her back to this point. Someone who I think I don't know if her tennis is particularly well known outside of maybe the hardcore tennis fans, but this is, to win a Grand Slam and to have the results that she's had, she's an outstanding player. And I think her speed was such an asset in this final, and I think really troubled Jabeur in a way that she hadn't really had been troubled by that speed throughout this tournament. She beat a lot of very, very big hitters Jabeur's run to the final, and Vondroušová just got everything back. And I think that was the big difference in terms of how this final kind of shook out at the end. I felt terrible for Jabeur, I really do. I think everyone is coming out of this one remembering perhaps Jabeur's tears rather than the flowers being awarded to Vondroušová.
That experience that Vondroušová had in 2019 as well at the French Open, that match wasn't particularly close against Ash Barty, but I have to imagine that helped her in some ways in terms of processing the emotions or finding a way to keep her level. That experience never hurts. But on the same side of that, Ons was here last year, Simon. She was in the US Open final. I think you could see the pain on her face. The idea that she's the minister of happiness in Tunisia is because people rely on her to lift them up, and her exploits are followed by so many. And you can tell that she's bearing a lot of this weight on her shoulders. We've seen how tight she is with her team. Obviously, her husband is involved in her team as well. And I think Breakpoint one of their few big wins was when they were highlighting Ons. With all that said, I wonder if there's some conversation to be had about shaking things up in the camp, perhaps. I don't know. I don't know where you go from here, because the first thing I think of after a loss like that is how do you come back from that, or what are you going to do to regroup mentally and psychologically? And I can't imagine like how big of a mountain that must feel like at the moment. I think she had talked to Kim Clijsters after the match, who'd been in a similar situation. Maybe add Kim Clijsters to the setup, Bush.
Yeah, and of course, Clijsters losing her first 4 Grand Slam finals as well. So good experience of someone to lean on. I don't think anything changes in the camp at all, Devang Jabeur's side of things. I think we have seen her ability to bounce back and her ability to get back to a final, lest we forget of who she beat in this tournament along the way. Mm-hmm. If I gave you the run that she had to go through to get to that final, I mean, talk about having to go through a gauntlet of players. Before you talk about being in the first round, you have Andreescu, Kvitova, Rybakina, Sabalenka. Jesus Christ, she ran through a murderer's row of players. It's a surprise, I think, that I don't think capitulated is fair. I think that's far too harsh for the way that this final shook out. I think more than anything else, the pressure kind of told on her, and she didn't game plan well enough in that final. She didn't overcome adversity in the way that she had done in the previous rounds. And I think that's kind of sad, because you know how difficult it is to get to a Grand Slam final. All that to say, I think she'll be back on this stage again. She's only 28. She's really, really good on grass, and she's proven during the course of the last 3 years how good she is at getting to the latter stages of this tournament. So she's going to be there for a long time, Dev. I really do believe that.
I think you're right, and I hope you're right as well. And I mean, last year she loses a Wimbledon final and responds by making another run at the US Open. So I think we can hope maybe for more of the same. These are her 2 favorite slams. I guess... Yeah, and if there's an ability to look on the positive side, like you mentioned, Simon, there's a potential path for her to play the big 3 all in a row and play Iga in the final, which I think might have helped her. I wonder if playing someone a bit more stature would have been a positive thing for Ons, because she was just such an overwhelming favorite and had maybe a little self-doubt about how much of a favorite she should be, because I think you saw her, she got down on herself pretty quickly in that first set as well. And from then on, it seemed to kind of go off the rails in a bit of a slow motion act. But the fact that she was such an overwhelming favorite, and it wasn't someone like Iga on the other side, Simon, I also wonder if that maybe played into things, along with the roof as well.
And potentially along with the black clothing gate as well, that made Monaco drop all around the grounds. And I thought this was a bit of a nothing story in the end, but you wouldn't have known that by listening to the ESPN commentary on this, or the prognosticators coming in and putting the boot in on Ons Jabeur in somewhat, I thought, a little harsh fashion, just to say, like, I heard naive being thrown around of like, how on earth could you send out your charge in black clothing and have to go and get changed? I mean, come on, like, it's whatever. It's not ideal, certainly. I don't think she lost this final because her preparation was disrupted. I thought she probably lost this final more so from a tactical standpoint and also from a nerve standpoint. And I don't know that that was a huge defining factor of this one.
Yeah, I mean, hell, that's not a story. If she wins, obviously, and it is, though. That's kind of interesting, though. I don't know. Maybe there is something into this. You know what? I've been clothing pilled. This was a sign of things to come for sure.
Potentially, yes, sure. And the point that I was making on the ability for Vondroušová to retrieve balls and just be a really good all-court player as well. I thought she served really well in this final. And conversely, Ons had a shocker on first serve. I think she was under 50% for the entire match. And I think it all kind of went downhill. I think this is somewhat of a surprising result, just given how well that she started in it. And if you were to take a snapshot of her being up 2-love and, you know, at the start of that third game, it looked smooth sailing. And then if you took that compared to the final result and the way that it unfolded, I think you would have been very surprised, because there were no signs of it in that first 20 minutes or so that this was going to go off the rails.
Just to go back on Vondroušová, Bush, you mentioned speed, employed the slice excellently, big lefty serve. She was just ridiculously consistent and maybe the last person you want to play. I know this is a horrible cliche, but the person you don't want to play in a final. Not only was she having nothing to lose after making an incredible run, but definitely a matchup problem for quite a few players, including Jess Pegula, who had looked pretty invincible coming up into that point in the quarterfinals, as well as Alina Svitolina. That match as well, Simon, eerily similar to the final.
Very, very similar. I didn't think Svitolina got close either, and I think there was perhaps a bit of a hangover from the previous result from Svitolina's perspective on the Swiatek result. But in general, what an incredible week for Vondroušová. I don't want to gloss over this at all, to come back from what had happened to her with the injury. And
missed
just
half
the way
the year, right? Missed half the year last season, pretty much.
Half the year, yeah. I mean, to come back and to do this, and it kind of puts me in my place a little bit, because I always look at track record or look at the ability to make a step up in terms of people's results at big tournaments. And you have to say this kind of came out of nowhere on grass. Like, she's never been past the second round at Wimbledon. She's really never looked like contending at all. I guess you can kind of maybe point to her record in doubles, that she's sort of made it to the latter stages of a Grand Slam. But in general, like, if you were predicting that Markéta Vondroušová was going to win this final and win this tournament prior to the tournament, then I think you would have made significant money, because there's not a lot of people that would have been there with you.
100%. She's also now in the top 10, which is quite cool. 2,000 extra points added on. Basically, of course, there were no points last year. Awesome stuff for her. I enjoyed the story of her Sphinx cat and her husband coming over. I thought the reactions of her husband and her sister when she won were pretty great, in terms of just being like, what? Like, what just happened? This is incredible.
Interesting question on the tattoos for Vondroušová as well. Is she the first tattooed player to win at Wimbledon? I was thinking about this or have a visible tattoos at least. I was trying to work this out. I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head. Can you?
Not as visible. Probably, I'm sure a few others have had like things that you couldn't maybe see, but yeah, I think it's a high potentiality. I think initially you might be mistaken that they're like athletic patches, and then you're like, wait a minute, those are tattoos.
I'm really curious now. If someone knows the answer to this, please reply to us or send us an email or like call us out, because I'm genuinely curious whether or not Maresmo seems accurate, right? I'm pretty sure Maresmo has tattoos. Is that it? That might be it, right?
There could be debate though when they got it, and like whether that lines up, if they got it before they had won or when they had won with it. So a lot to unpack there.
Either way, monocles dropped all over the
monocles everywhere. It's like, my goodness.
The game has gone. This is ridiculous. You can't be having this at all.
Princess of Wales was there, Simon. I know you didn't care for that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely abolish the monarchy, of course.
The insult to injury for Ons to have to go through that after such a tough loss.
Yeah, no one wants that, do they? To have to interact with either the Prince or the Princess of Wales. Are you a pro-abolition of the royal box person?
Yeah, get him out of there. Get him out of there. Keep the people that mean something to Wimbledon box. I don't know. I just wanted to make sure Stefan Edberg has a good seat, you know? Because he
put
looks
him in there with all the other fans. Wimbledon's not going to be like it.
It looked like Andy Murray was sitting with the regulars, the sickos in the regular seating. So, I mean, man of the people and all that. I saw Stormzy was there too. He was sitting in regular seating. So, yeah. Be a normal human being. That's all.
Dev, a member of the big three did not win this title.
I know. I was going to ask you how. I'm not shocked. Shocked is too strong, but I am surprised by that. I definitely thought at a certain point, probably right after she had won that first set, that Sabalenka was going to do this.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question to figure out on the women's side, which is the most surprising result of the week or the 2 weeks in terms of just being unexpected and just being from form. What did you think was going to happen? I think I'm with you. That Sabalenka Jabeur in the semifinals, I was certain, absolutely certain that thing was only going to go one way from the middle of the second set and from that break as well. I was shocked to turn on the TV, I would say from flipping to my laptop to the TV and seeing that, seeing that it was still going and Jabeur was actually playing incredibly well. She also really could have been out of it in that third set as well. So I think that I'm probably with you. That's the most surprising result. I think that final set of the Rybakina one was kind of mystifying as well. And I know Jabeur was in the zone and everything, and Rybakina was a little bit all over for the 2 weeks. I don't know that she ever found a level of consistency, but that's also, it's just an incredible win from Jabeur. Jesus Christ, on grass and everything. But it's really kind of sad that she didn't win this tournament, just given how...
Right? And we're going through it, just like, how did she win this match? Or like, how did she win that match? And then it's like, oh, come on. After that second round blip that Sabalenka had, I thought she looked the best for most of this tournament. And even Iga losing to Svitolina, there is some cracks in that Bencic match that left you thinking, it wouldn't be a shocker if she lost before the final. But yeah, I was pretty surprised by the fact that Sabalenka wasn't able to make this final. I think she probably wins this final too if she plays Vondroušová, but who's to know that?
It's very clearly Iga's weakest surface. I think that's very true to be said at the conclusion of this Wimbledon tournament. And I think she's clearly made strides. But yeah, that Bencic match, I think, told you everything you need to know against flat hitters, and people can hit through her a little bit, and she's not able to use her speed as a huge weapon on grass the same way that she is on other surfaces. She looks much more human and much more beatable, and it turned out to be the case.
The last few winners, I believe it's 6 years in a row, Simon, that it's been a new first-time champion on the women's side.
Correct.
That's
6 years in a row.
It's pretty interesting, and I think it's one in the column for the people who insist that there is something significantly different about the grass game as opposed to other surfaces. I believe that maybe Carlos Alcaraz is blown up in a couple of weeks, but I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with you. Certainly on the WTA side, there's many more things to go into than just the surface, but I think it certainly plays a factor in terms of having a bit more parity and it's a bit more challenging to see the same players at the latter stages of tournament. That being said, Ons Jabeur made it to 2 finals in a row. So.
Right. And there's a lot of familiar names. If you go back just a year before that and look at Serena, Petra, Venus, Mresmo, Sharapova. Yeah, there's a lot of familiar names. Also a name on that list, if you go back even a bit further, Jana Novotná, 1998. This is now Ons Jabeur in full Novotná territory. Bush, so according to our Discord, our wonderful Discord, where we had a blast these last 2 weeks, but I think that comparison was spot on.
I think so as well. Yeah, of course, at this tournament as well, in the Royal Box for the women's final, it was a who's who of the women's game showing up, which was nice to see. Give me more of those people and less of royalty.
I think we can agree on that. Anything else, Simon, from the women's side of the draw?
Just great to see Vondroušová winning this. I think having completed the full comeback, I'm just stoked to see her at the top of the game. And I think one of the things that people tend to forget about her as well, she's only 24. She's 24 years of age. And to be, she's going to be a fixture inside of the top 10 now. If she's managing to stay healthy, Dev, look out on clay again next year. She's a fantastic clay court player. I'm really excited to see how she does.
She was talking about visiting last year with a cast on her arm, supporting her friend through qualifying. And for 1 year later to be lifting the trophy at the very end of this tournament, that's cool. That's cool stuff. Tennis can produce that cool stuff. And while it was disappointing to see Ons fall short, she will be back. I think we're pretty confident in that. And I think we should be celebrating the achievement from Markéta Vondroušová, champion of this year's Wimbledon. Simon, how many times did they mention Stepan worked in IT on your broadcast?
A considerable amount.
I was like, all right, we get it. He's super lanky, cool.
Lots of screen times for the husbands, and lots of quotes from the husbands during the course of this as well. So it's a good week for the partners.
He played tennis too a bit, I think, but he got injured when he was 18, so he had to give up that. But awesome stuff for that family and their cat, Frankie, as well.
You've got to say, just coming to close this section out, and the desire for so many people to see tennis create stars and to market differently. Ons Jabeur is firmly fixed into the British psyche now, and probably most of the tennis watching public, to know her story, know her background, understand the journey that she's been on, know what the relationship is with her camp, all the work inside of Breakpoint as well. This is a star. This is a real star, and someone that I think it's very cool to see her at the top of the game. And this is a journey that is really easy to root for because she's the underdog, and she's also been there at the summit so many times. Not quite at the summit, but she's been at the top of the mountain, not quite there. And it's going to be fun to see her journey continue and to see the way that she's pushed in the sport.
All right, we'll leave it there. When we come back after the break, the ATP men's final at Wimbledon, Carlos Alcaraz winning in 5 sets over Novak Djokovic. We'll talk about all of that, plus some other championship deciding matches at Wimbledon coming up next. Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. Well, it actually happened, Simon. 10 years on from Novak Djokovic's last loss on center court at Wimbledon. History repeated itself with Andy Murray in attendance. Carlos Alcaraz is now a multi-time slam champion, adding Wimbledon to his trophy case. 5 sets. Give me your honest, no BS. What were you actually giving percentage-wise chance of this happening, Simon, before the match?
Higher internally than I think I was willing to publicly say.
Yeah, your shame
Exactly.
meter was spiking as you're like, well, I think he's got a chance here.
Probably around like 35% to 40%. Wow. Okay. So like not huge, like in the sense of it, certainly not a 50-50 shot, or I wouldn't have put him as the favorite in this final. But you could clearly, and I think actually it's worth pointing out on this one of how you see the tour and how you see this matchup between Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic, because I think taking a step back from this, I believe that Carlos Alcaraz is the favorite going against Novak Djokovic on every other surface, on every other court in the world. I believe that's to be true. Probably not the Australian Open and probably not here at Wimbledon. Yeah. So basically not on 2 courts in the world. So that being said, is it still surprising that someone that you would say would be the favorite against Novak Djokovic on every other court in the world wouldn't have a shot on one of his favorite surfaces? No, it's not that ridiculous. All that being said, it's fucking great to see it. It was it was a wonderfully cathartic moment to get over the line.
It might have been 35% before the match, but after that first set, it probably went down to around 2 to 3%. Right? Like we all were like, this is not it. This isn't happening.
I think it's going to be remembered for a few high spots. And I think one of the things that we'll remember from this final is the way that 5th set had such a huge swing of momentum. The Djoko smash, the forehand smash into the net when
the
he had break
smash,
point.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And how different the course of history could have been from that point. He dumps it in the bottom of the net. Carlos breaks immediately in the next game. And then pretty smooth sailing, like really nerveless, I think, to take him over the line in those final 2 games. Considering how up and down his serve had been, I was so impressed with how he held it together. And we said this after the French, right? He will learn from these moments. We don't think he's ever going to blink again in these situations. Like he got all of his nerves out. He learned Terminator style of how to deal with the situation. So it's not entirely shocking that it happened here.
Well, I like how he's like, oh, I grew up a lot since the French Open like 2 days ago. Like, that happened like 3 hours ago. Yeah, it's like, I guess he's learning that quickly though, because I think that the reason I had his chances lower than you did before the match is because that French Open match was so fresh in my mind, and seeing an aggressive, in your face, I'm not going to let this guy have a chance to believe Djokovic so early in that match was a sign of things to come. And it felt like that was going to happen again on Sunday.
I think some of this is revisionist history, though, on what that first 2 sets were like, though. They were a hell of a lot closer
in Paris, you're saying?
In Paris, yeah.
Yeah. Before. I mean, he won the second set, Carlos.
He won the second
set, yeah.
Like, I think he wins that match if he doesn't cramp or have the quote unquote injury or have nerves. Like, I genuinely believe he's the better player on clay. I do believe that. So it isn't beyond the realms of possibility that he should be a good grass court player as well. I mean, fucking hell, he is. He just won the title, for goodness sake.
Well, I mean, the cramping stuff is interesting to bring up, because that was a huge focal point of that match at RG. And another thing I was thinking about was, if this does go long, and it's going to take an epic, maybe not so much in the level of play, but epic in terms of length, will he have enough in the tank to stick around and be there? And I will say Novak was the one who looked 36 years old and a bit ragged towards the end and dumping and missing way more backhands than I've seen him dump or miss in moments that he just doesn't do that. I think that was a bit surprising to me.
Clearly troubled by the wind as well, which I think was or at least he was outwardly showing that he was troubled by the wind. I don't know whether or not that's just like a bad craftsman blames his tools situation. I mean, it clearly does. If you're playing outdoors, it's clearly problematic and is going to affect any player. That being said, I mean, this dude has literally not lost in 10 years on this court. So if anyone would know his way around the surface and how to deal with the conditions, it would be Novak Djokovic. I think some of that is just clearly down to the fact that he's playing a younger, fitter man who has taken everything, absorbed everything from the three greatest male players of all time and molded it into this absurd version of something that we're now seeing the fruits of.
The Discord, God love us, we do talk about the commentary a lot, and I think it makes sense because this is how we're absorbing the matches, and these are the people entrusted to talk to us about what's happening. But it was interesting. Like, I had this on mute for large portions of the match, but I did listen to some post-match stuff, and John McEnroe saying that the sport needed this and it's good for men's tennis that Novak lost here. I think that's not true. I think we can look at this separately and just be glad and happy that there's a new great champion on the scene. I think we can enjoy it for that reason. I do think people would still be focusing in on what's happening if Novak is going for the calendar slam. I think that would have been a big deal too, but I'm curious where you net out on this. I think having some fresh blood, obviously win is good, but I was a bit, I felt like John McEnroe was saying that just to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very easy narrative to pick out, isn't it? I don't agree with him either. I'm on board with you on that one. I think it would have been still fine had Novak Djokovic won this final because the chase is almost more interesting than trying to stay at the top from a narrative perspective. Carlos Alcaraz is the world number one, clearly. He's the best player in the world. And I think he eliminates any doubt at this point of how many locations Novak Djokovic can beat him at, which is kind of crazy to think. When was the last time we were saying this about Novak, is that he's the second best dude in the world, which is kind of an interesting thing to revel in.
I want the US Open to happen tomorrow for this reason, because I need to see if this does anything when other people play him. Is this a Thanos situation? Is to say, does he still have all of his otherworldly powers now? He does, right? This is just a single match.
Yeah, but I think the US Open is an interesting case study as well, because you could make the argument that he's actually the third favorite at that tournament, which is, I know, is ridiculous, and stay with me for a second, but you look at the year that Danny Medvedev has had on hard courts, and you also look at his record at the US Open and his record against Novak Djokovic as well on that surface. There is a pretty decent case to be made that Djokovic, that's the hardest one for him to win by a considerable margin. I.e., there's like more than one player who can beat him.
I bet you Jannik Sinner wouldn't mind taking on Novak again on a hard court. I know that.
Certainly not on a grass court.
No, God, no, not on a grass court. Please, God. Anything else from this final, specifically, Bush, that caught your eye? I thought the level dipped. I think the points won. Carlos won 168 points. Novak won 166. Very, very tight. It's 2 points difference. The line calling was, wow, not good. I feel bad, but the robots had a great marketing campaign for themselves over the last couple of days.
Yeah, why are we still doing this in 2023? Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, a lot of calls. A lot. And also, hey, guys, like the court is just battered over 2 weeks. So no wonder it's hard to see what's happening back there.
I'm as pro workers' rights as you ever find. But goodness me, pay those people to go and do something else. Keep them as employees, but we'll find a use for them somewhere else in the club.
It'll be their job to train and build these robots, which are interesting to take over.
Oh yeah, just give them the money, alternatively, and then give them a nice spot in what has now been christened the players box instead of the royal box instead, or the working class box. Well, one other point I'll make from this final is just how off balance Novak Djokovic was from a player who is impeccable with his footwork. And really that is one of the calling cards that he's managed to win 1 billion titles and to not lose here for a decade. And I think that's one of the things that you see of how of why someone like Carlos Alcaraz is able to beat him and is able to be consistently competitive against Novak Djokovic is that he is able to take those regular patterns and he's able to break them. There's an element of chaos, controlled chaos, like very under control, that he knows what he's doing. So the ability to go behind Djokovic or to change the patterns of play and have the technical ability to do that, it throws Novak off. It really does. And I think it's very true in this final as well.
No, it's a great point. He was slipping a lot. Those ASIC shoes took a beating from Novak himself, who pummeled them several times. Novak also smoking the post, the racket post. Had a few run-ins with a cap-wearing Fergus Murphy. Saw heel Novak a bit. Who, again, the Wimbledon crowd, not a lot of love there. I mean, some of these people are terrible. So I was like, yeah, go at them. Blow kisses at them. But also, do you have to do this?
It's not a good look for him smashing the net post, was it?
It wasn't. That was bad. And it looked like he kind of hurt himself for a bit, which would have been just the ultimate irony if he destroyed his quest for immortality by injuring himself. That was one of the only ways I could see him losing this title, right? Like it was either that or Carlos Alcaraz, basically him or him alone can wrestle this away from Novak. But yeah, he didn't look right. He didn't look comfortable at all. And not the Novak we're used to seeing at slams, where you can kind of forget everything that you've seen beforehand because he has that ability to compartmentalize and move on so quickly. It looked like he had some trouble with that on Sunday, and Charlie learned a lot from that French Open match.
I think so as well. I think he was made to look uncomfortable, and I think anything different said than that, I think, is doing a very big disservice to the world number one, because yes, maybe his footwork was letting him down. Maybe his shoes weren't doing it. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was all of this thing.
It was Carlos Alcaraz too. Yeah.
Maybe it was just the world number one.
Yeah, it was Carlos Alcaraz. Juan Carlos Ferrero looking like a race car driver for at least like a Porsche Le Mans team. I don't know. The BMW thing threw me off, but love to see his brother in the crowd, the younger Alcaraz, looking bored as hell. I love it.
Yeah, he sort of sits between the two brothers, right? The sort of bigger, chunky Carlos, the older one, and the smaller, blonder one. Carlos is like the perfect embodiment of right in the middle of the two of them.
Can we talk about how Alcaraz absolutely brutalized Holger Rune and Daniil Medvedev before this final? Like, you want to talk about a week-defining stretch here of laying waste to your contemporaries. He didn't get to play Sinner, but holy cow, that's impressive.
I think there's actually a really interesting question to ask on this one. You take Novak Djokovic out of the equation. Let's say he retired tomorrow. Anyone even close to Carlos Alcaraz? Maybe Danny Medvedev on a hard court?
Yeah, Sinner on a hard court, maybe. Having that match point last year, he could make a claim to that. But
Rune on a clay court, I guess you could maybe hit the case. That's pretty big gap, I would say. It's opened up now.
The aura is only growing. That Medvedev, I mean, good run for him. No one really expected him to do anything on grass, but that was a humbling loss in the semifinals.
This is such a funny narrative that we've managed to get for Danny Medvedev, right? Oh, the world number 3.
Yeah.
Well done for making it to the semifinal.
Underdog right to the semifinals, playing to his seeding. Chris Eubanks, wonderful story. He pushed Medvedev to the limit in the quarterfinals. Won a lot of people over with his post-match interviews as well. That was cool. But overall, I mean, I expected chalk. I expected to see Novak on Sunday lifting this trophy for his 24th slam and his 8th Wimbledon title to tie Roger Federer, and we didn't see that. And I'm frankly still a bit stunned. I think for me, Simon, this is a breath of fresh air in the sense that I'm not the biggest Novak supporter. I've come to respect his game and arguably a lot more other things. Like I don't dislike watching Novak play, but I did find it dispiriting that all of his foes would kind of crumble in the same manner at the same juncture. So to see someone break through and rewrite the script like this, that to me was very positive. And it's a great thing to consider as we head to North America.
I'm stoked for the US Open now. I really do genuinely think there was 3 players on the men's side who are going for that title. And we'll see if Jannik Sinner has learned anything from making it as far as he's ever done in a Grand Slam, to see if he can catapult that again to making the latter stages of Grand Slam. It's a good time for the men's game. It's a good response to what has been quite a boring season.
All right. We have some other finals to talk about, Bush. So maybe we'll do one of them here, and then we'll move the rest into parting shots.
Well, I think it probably starts with the first British boys champion, does it not? In 64 years? 63 years? Something
what?
like that.
Wow.
Henry Searle wins 61 years, excuse me. Yeah, Henry Searle winning the boys title. It's been a very, very long time. Some names from the past, just to put this into context. The last boys champion was Stanley Matthews. No, not that Stanley Matthews, the son of that Stanley Matthews, who went to go on to win this title. That's on the men's side, I should say, the boys' side. Obviously, Laura Robson winning this on the girls' side. But yeah, like, it's kind of cool to see. The state of British tennis has been under the microscope, not least because of some of the quotes that we sort of highlighted by Dan Evans a few weeks ago, saying that the victory by Emma Raducanu papered over the cracks of the state of British tennis in general. So to see Henry Searle go in and win this title is really kind of cool. I don't know if he's ever going to do anything at senior level, but at the same time, it's nice to have a home winner at the junior level.
Unseeded too. Pretty amazing run to this final. He took out the number 1 seed as well in his first match. Not a whole lot of other British flags though in the boys draw, Simon. So maybe lending to what Dan Evans was talking about, or that lack of depth on the development side for the Brits. Very nice story for him. Let's talk about some other finals, including an epic in the wheelchair final, plus parting shots coming up after the break on Open Era.
Welcome back to the Open Era podcast. Devang, it's time for parting shots. And let us also give some flowers, pay our dues, pay our respects also to another British winner. Neil Skupski won the men's doubles. His first title with Wesley Koolhof at Wimbledon. It's fantastic to see. This was a demolition job, this final. I watched the highlights back. I wasn't able to watch it live, but by all accounts and reading the write-ups of it, this was not very close. It was done in 77 minutes. And it's cool to see another piece of British history alongside Henry Searle winning.
Very positive week for the Brits after the national nightmare and soul reflection that was caused by Andy Murray's loss. When I read several hundred think of the ratings columns, good to see everything was okay in the end. The number 1 seeds taking care of business. Expected to win. I saw Neil Skupski's brother is his coach too, which is kind of cool, Simon.
It is cool, yeah. Wesley Koolhof as well. Fantastic hair. Really, really fantastic hair. He looks very much like a middle-aged dad. So.
Kind of cool name. Pardon the pun, but Koolhof, cool name. Congrats to them. The wheelchair, Simon, more glory for the Brits there, at least in doubles.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends which side of the coin you want to look at on this one, right? So Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid win the wheelchair doubles, and then Alfie Hewitt gets absolutely bodied by Takedo Oda in the men's final. So it was a contrasting situation. Oda pretty much cementing his place and his ascent to the top of that discipline. But a nice little comeback from Hewitt, given that he is, how many times has he won this? 5? I think it's a 5-time champion in doubles here. So yeah, good on that side of things. Not so great on the single side of it. And boy, oh boy, this Oda kid is pretty special, Dev.
He's 17 years old. It's crazy. And he dominated Alfie Hewitt's teammate Gordon Reid as well in the semifinals. So that must have felt nice as well, considering they lost the doubles. But the new phenom in men's tennis is thriving, backing up his French Open win with a Wimbledon and taking over the mantle from Shingo Kaneda, who won last year's Wimbledon but retired in January of this year. Very cool to see, Bush.
It is fantastic to see. Let's switch gears and go to the wheelchair singles for the women's side of things. And Didi de Groot takes your 45 match win streak for Novak Djokovic and laughs at it. What if I give you 110? No, 111.
It's 12
in a row.
Is this 12 in a row? 12
I think
majors?
it's 12 in a row and 111 straight match wins.
Jeez Louise. What would have John McEnroe had said if Jiski Griffeon could have won this final? What would he have said?
Do you think John McEnroe has ever watched?
I mean, he doesn't know who Nicholas Jarry is, so I don't think it would be a good bet to ask him.
19 slam titles for De Groot. And 111, Jesus Christ, 111 matches in a row. This is domination. This is potentially, you could say, one of the most dominant periods for any athlete in any sport, in any discipline. That's how completely and utterly she's owned the field.
The girls champion as well. I know Cromulent Josh in the Discord shouted out Clairvite Ngannou, who won. 16 years old, Bush, a name to watch. If Josh is saying watch out for someone, then you should watch out for them because they're probably going to be winning some titles very soon. But that's a name to file away.
Yeah, keep an eye on it, right? Yes. Cromwell Josh has done any level of circling of a player, then usually keep it firmly on the radar for the next coming few years.
I watched this final, actually, mixed doubles. I was like, why is Ivan Perisic, the Tottenham Hotspur midfielder, in the players' box? I was a bit confused. And then you must be friends with Pavic. But I watched this mixed doubles final, which was quite fun, Simon.
It was, yeah. I really enjoyed this one as well, having, fully stapled my colours to the mast of saying that it was going to be a different pair winning this, and then they get promptly dumped out in the first round. Shows what I know about this sort of thing. But Kichenok, first Grand Slam title for her. It's a really cool story. And this is actually a really fun final to watch. Mixed doubles is a cool discipline in general. If you get a ticket for a certain day at Wimbledon and you get to see some mixed doubles, it's a really interesting and fun discipline to watch.
100%. Scheduling stuff this year, I know there was a lot to discuss about that, especially in last week's episode, Bush. But I think the women's invitational final, which was a banger, was on at the same time as the women's final. Is this true? I can't recall if I'm reading this correctly. But in any case, Kim Clijsters and Martina Hingis beat Cara Black and Caroline Wozniacki in the ladies' invitation doubles tennis. Like, I can understand why some people might want to watch that. Like I maybe don't schedule this at the same time.
Yes, that's perhaps a good idea. I don't know. I'm not going to tell them what to do, but did you see the impromptu Mansour Barami versus Greg Rosetsky singles match that happened? Match, quote unquote. It was 3 points long. Greg Rosetsky surprisingly not wearing trousers on court.
Wimbledon really loves their gimmicks. For such a hallowed institution that is the home of the sport, it's interesting to me how gimmicky some things are.
Greg Rosetsky looks like he is about 70 years old on a tennis court, which is shocking, really.
Oh, man. He walked so Milos could run, right? That's how it works. Yeah.
Kind of true. Other than that, I mean, goodness me, it was a feast. I did read somewhere, and I'm going to butcher this, so my apologies trying to do it on the cuff. I believe there was British winners at the under 14 level of both girls and boys. So take that, Dan Evans.
Idiot. Yeah. Also, as we record, the legend Sway and Strykova are battling Elise Mertens and Sanders in the women's doubles. So TBD on who wins that. The Sway way against friend of the show Elise Mertens, Simon Torrin there.
Fantastic stuff. Notice I did not leave out the professions of the parents of the two under 14-year-olds. Because I did not know what they were. Wow. Maybe they were dentist, two doctors lawyer. And lawyers. Yeah.
Dentist, lawyer, doctor.
One of those anyway.
All right. Parting shots, Simon.
Parting shots. So let's begin with some weird stuff. All right, let's start with Roger Federer. So Roger Federer was playing chess as part of a Uniqlo advert. Did you see this video? I
did. He's playing like a youngster, like a 12-year-old grandmaster, something like that.
Yes, in New York City as well, in a park there. It was very fun to see. Federer is just a fantastic ambassador for a product. He's pretty much everything that you could possibly want if you were going to
brand spokesman.
As a brand spokesman.
Didn't we talk about this last week on the show about how he's such a great brand ambassador? What are we doing, Bush? Are we getting that on running back?
God damn it. I'll take the Uniqlo one. Like at least some decent t-shirts. I have no idea what their from an ethical standpoint, if Uniqlo are any good or not, probably not.
That video was great, but I also like when the kid's like, the kid brought his friends along and then Roger's deserted, like he has no friends there. I thought that was a funny contrast.
Yes, I noticed he also didn't include Novak Djokovic
He
in that
didn't
list.
in the friends list. No.
Straight to Rafa.
I saw Rafa congratulate Alcaraz. You better believe there'll be a Roger tweet congratulating Alcaraz. I almost positive. If there hasn't been already, there will be one.
Has to be. Good win for Nike as well, right? It's been
No
a bad
5
year
in a
for them,
row.
so-
Yeah, big one for Nike. No 5 in a row. This Taylor Fritz Twitch thing, you have to explain this to me because I'm at a loss for words.
I don't really know what happened. He gets dumped out, right?
So he loses at Wimbledon.
And then he goes directly to Twitch a few days after.
TwitchCon? Did he go to TwitchCon or is he on?
He wasn't at TwitchCon, no,
Okay.
as far as I understand. I think he was just doing some live streaming, right? Like that's it. And the only reason I put this into the notes is just it's kind of nice to see someone using a professional player other than Andy Murray doing Twitch streams. And if ever there was someone who really fit into that bill, it would be Taylor Fritz. So yet another good stroke of marketing here.
Got to imagine there's some Morgan Riddell influence there. Simon, if you catch my
Riddell?
drift. Riddle. It's a Riddle.
Is that I don't know which one it is.
Riddell is like a helmet manufacturer for American football as well, I believe.
Is that like me being either Bushel or
Yeah,
Bushel?
exactly.
The French version of me. whenever
Bouchel's
I'm in
pretty good,
Quebec.
actually. Bouchel is pretty good. I might go with that. But New Horizons. It's funny, we were talking about this in the Discord about a watch along during these matches. They're like, oh, let's do our own commentary because we're sick of the regular comms. And then it was quickly mentioned that we would be at under 80 copyright infringements and struck down so quickly. Let us do it, people. Let everyone do it. More people will care about your sport.
I think we were on the record a few years ago trying to
Yeah.
beat this drum, were we not? So.
You think they would DMCA strike Taylor Fritz if he was trying to live stream a tournament he wasn't playing in? That would be the ultimate test.
I think that's the one that's really interesting to know is that if you have a high profile, I mean, any player, I'd say inside of the top
Literally
100 that
anyone.
was-
Yeah, literally anyone who's willing to. Yeah.
I'd be very, very fascinated to see what either the ATP or the WTA did about it. Oh, I don't know. Would it be ESPN? It'd probably be the broadcasters over the actual tour, right? I'd imagine.
I think so.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm down for it.
I mean,
What
we're sign us up. Victoria Azarenka, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, she went on a journey during the course of this fortnight, did she not? From being asked truly ridiculous questions at her press conference to being booed off of the court in her match, in the round of 16 match against Alina Svitolina. She was also had some interesting quotes around Novak Djokovic as well when she was asked about it, and trying, I think, a little bit coming to his aid in terms of trying to offer her own view of how she sees the Serb and how what her relationship is like with Djokovic as well. What did you make of the booing of her going off court? This one is clearly going to have a lot more legs to it, and I'd be surprised if we don't see more of this at the US Open as well. But we've seen some buffoonish behavior, some clownish behavior at every Grand Slam so far this season, so it wasn't particularly surprising that we see it here again.
Yeah, I was reading an article, Bush kind of wrapping up this year's Wimbledon and discussing the scheduling issues and the long lines for people because of security and increased security and them having to pivot because there was lines as long as 10 hours at the grounds. And then, of course, we had the big concern over the Just Stop Oil protesters finding their way into the courts. And that's why there was that security, and they found their way in anyways, Simon. And I think as we hit some of the hottest days in world history during this tournament, it was fitting that their presence was there as well. I'm just curious what your thoughts were overall on this tournament in 2023 as we move on. There's so many things that feel somewhat antiquated, and then there's a lot of gimmickry as well, like I mentioned, but then there's things that are kind of hard to beat, including that feeling on the last Sunday and the atmosphere on the court as we go into the fifth set. It's still hard to reconcile all these different emotions.
I love grass court tennis. I do not love Wimbledon. I would be happy if a grass court Grand Slam happened somewhere else in the world.
Saudi Arabia, Simon?
Shit.
Wow.
You've got me.
About the royal box, though, it should be banned, yeah?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt about it in my mind that this is another antiquated thing that has absolutely no place existing within our sport.
I like how I Googled royal box because, you see a bunch of celebrities there, but you're not sure who exactly is there. And the first thing that came up was Ariana Grande was not wearing her wedding ring in the royal box, and there was a huge scandal regarding that. And then the next article I saw was regarding Priyanka Chopra Jonas. And I thought that was enough because the next article I read involved Jimmy Butler dating Shakira. So I feel like searching the royal box on Google is a Pandora's box leading you into all the celebrity goss you didn't need.
So I don't know anything about the royal family, but I do know that Kate Middleton?
Kate Middleton. Yep.
I don't even remember her bloody name.
Where's Pippa at, man? Where's Pippa Middleton at? What do they do with her?
Isn't she's married to some like horrendous stockbroker or something, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, that would check out actually. Mystery solved.
Like, so what is the association here? I don't know. Why is the Prince and Princess of Wales so involved at Wimbledon? Like, why are they handing out trophies and shit? Like, I genuinely don't have any clue.
Tradition, man.
Like, are they members or anything? Like, what is their association with the All England Club?
That I'm guessing our wonderful listeners can enlighten us on. But I've chosen to be ignorant regarding this because the less I know, the better. So the real royalty was spread around the ground. We had Hugh Jackman, Stormzy, Daniel Craig, other various actors, Jimmy Butler.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
No, Lin-Manuel Miranda. Jimmy Butler, who is dating Shakira and is also a huge Carlos Alcaraz fan.
Andrew Garfield, I believe, was
saw him. Yes, Andrew Garfield was there. What's wrong with us? Celebs. It's always about the celebs.
Yeah, I think it's about branding and anything else, isn't it? Making sure that you go and get
the King of Spain was there. Bush, you're going off on the British royal family. The King of Spain was watching.
I was thinking about this during the course of the final when like you're handed the trophy to see both Carlos Alcaraz and Novak Djokovic doing the slight bow to and just be like, if I was in that position and like, cause they, the encore presenter, sorry, I've forgotten her name at the top of my head. Former British great, I should say. Jesus. Apologies. I'm losing my British touch.
You don't know anything. You don't know anything about your homeland, man.
Jesus,
you don't even know how the royal family's there. What's going on? Discover your roots, man.
But she asked the question of like, oh, it must be so exciting. You must be so proud to play in front of the King of Spain. I'm just trying to think of myself in that position of just like radical,
not really, not really
anti-royalist statement. Being like, well, I'm sure it's good for the crowd to see him and me personally.
I did think it was weird they asked him about playing croquet with Roger Federer at the end of that thing, but I bet you Carlos Alcaraz would have been more hyped if Roger was there and not the King of Spain.
Almost certainly, yes.
With all due respect. With all due respect.
No respect at all.
Actually, with no respect.
Spain
with no
is
respect
a fascist country,
yes,
as you know.
Okay. All right. Did you want to talk about this Jimmy Butler thing, or shall we leave it?
No, it's just like he seemed extra hyped to see Carlos Alcaraz. Did not know he was dating Shakira. That is news to me.
Yeah, breaking news.
She is now dating a Rolex as opposed to a Casio.
Sure, PK. He did deserve that as well. Okay, good.
Apparently they're in an open relationship. Did you see
this? See why? Of course I saw it, Simon, because the internet is broken and destroyed. Of course I saw it. That's all you can see now. Celebrity goss.
Look, I'm not absolutely no sex shaming here at all. Like it's a fluid concept over everything. Do what you want, right? Just make sure no one gets hurt.
I just reading the Guardian homepage. Alcaraz beats Djokovic to win final for the ages. Was this final for the ages, Simon? Will this look differently in a few years? Do you think this match?
No, this is not a classic at all. And I was, you see I saw that one of the comments from Andrew Castle of all people, genuinely the worst commentator in all sport.
Which is hard. This is hard. That's a hard thing to measure, but wow.
He's on a very short list of worst commentators in any sport, so it's quite impressive. Basically saying this was an all-time, one of the greatest finals ever. Like, my man, it wasn't. It just wasn't. It was fine.
It was fine.
The first set was great.
It's cathartic. It was good. If you wanted to see Carlos Alcaraz win, you had a great time. If you wanted to see Ons Jabeur win, you had not so great of a time this weekend. That is it for 2023 at Wimbledon. Simon, 2 challengers remaining. I'll go first. Family, not a Fast and the Furious thing, but my pops is at the hospital again, second time in recent months regarding a health scare, but he's doing better now. And one of the first things we talked about when I visited him was tennis and Wimbledon. And he did think Carlos Alcaraz had a better than 50% chance, Simon, of winning against Novak. So shouts to Dad. Get well soon. Keep getting well and enjoy watching the replays of this final a few times on the TV.
Good shout. Absolutely. All the best to your pops, Dev. Wish him all the best.
Thank you, Bush.
For mine, I will go in a different direction and say that we are a few days removed from the Women's World Cup. And
right.
One of the very few tournaments where I get a double dip at it.
It's allowed, yeah. Although, based on some of what we've just heard regarding your knowledge of your homeland, I don't know if this even counts anymore, man.
Completely disowned from being able to support one of these teams now.
Predictions? Who's winning this Women's World Cup? USA? A-OK?
I think so. It seems like the safe money, does it not? I think that's very, very possible.
Give me the killer koalas, the hometown crew. I'm taking Australia. How about that?
It did sneak up on me because I actually forgot where this tournament was. And I don't know if anyone else is like this. I'm sure you are because I know your brain. But being like, oh, I know where the next 3 World Cups are. And I know where the next 2 Olympics are.
That's how I measure my life.
Exactly.
I don't count years. I count various Olympic and World Cup sites.
And I was like, oh, damn it, I can't. Is it in France? No, wait, no, I can't do this. Australia. Okay, I remember now. It should be a good tournament anyway. I'm excited for it. Timeline wise, it's absolutely fucking dreadful for me though on the West Coast. So
yeah, that is a tough one.
Yeah, really, really awful.
Some late nights, early mornings should be fun. All right, good shout, Bush. We'll leave it there. A reminder, like we've mentioned a few times on the show, we are on patreon.com/open era. Join us there, get the show ad free, get it early on Sundays. Plus, join our excellent Discord. We're chatting tennis all the time. I didn't use Twitter much at all during Wimbledon. Mostly a product of Twitter no longer working very much, but I was on the Discord a lot and chatting in there with those wonderful people. So join us, join them, join us on patreon.com. Leave us a rating or a review wherever you find this podcast as well. That would be wonderful as we try to get this pod into more people's ears. Nice to see us charting around the world. Doing well in Great Britain as well, Simon. I'm not so sure we will be after this week's episode, but let's hope they forgive us for this horrendous sin. Okay. For producer Dylan on the ones and twos, and for Simon, thank you so much for listening to Open Era. We'll talk to you next week.